Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm Scott McDonald, and that is Mike Green on the screen with me. And we are just tickled pink about our topic today and about the summer. We're having a pretty good summer. I'm going to freely admit that, although I'll say right at the beginning, we've been offering this very low price demographic report, and it's going to end like real soon. In fact, we should have sent out the email a little while ago that says it's over, but technically it just didn't happen. So if you're listening to this, you might have time to get the discounted report, but move on that thing. So things are recovering well throughout the United States after the COVID virus, and we have been tracking carefully why it's doing well in some places and why it is not. And you may be surprised to find out some areas are just on fire. Some places are sucking hose water. And I won't explain much about those in this episode, but I'll just say, if you happen to be doing well, please, whatever you do, be smart. If you're not doing well, also be smart. Now, Mike and I have both had an experience that our topic today is about. And that is kind of like, you know, that 2:35 time where you lean over and you look at the little clock next to your bed and you see it just clicked over to 2:35 a.m. And you're looking up at the ceiling and you're thinking, I have to make a decision to sign papers in the morning. I've got to decide where I'm going to go. Am I going to buy the practice that's for sale? How am I going to promote this practice? I need patience. And I want you to know, no matter how smart you are, you're always going to have problems like this. See, one of the things that I've noticed is if you have an employee mentality, you're always waiting for someone else to make the big choices and the big decisions. And as a doctor, you don't have that option a lot. And most of the people we work with are self-employed. They're trying to figure out, where do I go? How do I grow? How do I avoid risks? And, you know, that's where 2:35 in the morning is not a time that you're deep asleep. You're worried. I want to talk about perspectives on how to go about that. And one of the reasons I'm grateful for Mike is because Mike has been there and done that too. Mike, you've worried from time to time, haven't you?
A few times, yeah.
There are so many things to worry about.
You see the gray in my beard and I'm actually only 23, so it's a lot of gray.
Wow, you look like hell. No, I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. Mike, seriously, you're a very attractive man.
Thank you.
But see, one of the nice things about Mike is he understands what a gut check is. And he knows what that's like, which makes it a little comforting. Because sometimes, this may surprise you, things haven't always just fallen into place for us. Have they, Mike?
No, sir, they have not.
All right, then.
Well, for you, anyways.
Well, and you see my gray hair. How old did you say you were, Mike?
23.
Well, you're lying, Mike. Okay, whatever. But, you know, I'm almost 30, and I know.
About right.
Well, you know the portrait of Dorian Gray? You've heard of that story?
Yeah.
I am the portrait of Dorian Gray. I look that bad. All right, so let's go through this little gut check perspectives. And I just want to tell you something. Any real doctor, any practice owner knows what I'm talking about. And there are a lot of good reasons for a gut check. By the way, being a father and a grandfather, you know, that's pretty rough too. And we have to do those things. There are a couple of things I want to talk to you about. What are you going to decide at that hour when you're sleep deprived, you're nervous, and you're worried about having an ulcer that is eating away through your stomach, and you're afraid it's probably going to stain the sheets and burn through the mattress and even get to the carpet under the bed? That's how much stomach acid you have. I understand that. I do want the doctors to know, who are watching this, to know we've been there, and I want to help you. Now, here are 5 perspectives on the gut check. One of the people who I never want to take advice from are people who do not have skin in the game. Only those people who have actually been there and know the uncertainty understand what I'm talking about, and those are the people who I honor and that I trust. If someone hasn't been through there, don't have skin in the game, don't know what I'm talking about, well, think about it this way. Employee types, doctors who never own a practice, don't have a building, don't really have to hire anybody. They don't know what I'm talking about, and they sleep just fine. Curse them. Okay, now look, practice ownership, I believe, however, is worth the sleepless nights. Now, I'm a demographer. I'm not a practice management consultant. I work with a lot of them. But the truth is, the sleepless nights, are they worth it? And I have to say, yes, absolutely they are. Risk brings rewards. And that is why you're sitting up at night wondering about what's going on. No risk, no reward. Now, a lot of people will ask me, how do I make money in healthcare? How do I get to be rich? And I have to tell them, well, it's not by working as an employee. It's owning something. It is actually having risk. It's having that skin in the game. Now, I bring that up because part of what we're trying to do at Dr. Demographics is to help answer the questions and give you information so that you'll know what is a good risk and what is a bad risk. There are people who are in this business, management consultants or whatever, who don't have skin in the game. And their job primarily, in their minds at least, is to get you to go, oh, great, I'll buy something else. That isn't enough for me. It's not enough for Mike. We kind of believe that the people we help have to know that we care about them and that we know where they are. I know that. That's why, by the way, I'm quick to acknowledge that the reports we do are as good as I can make them, but there are sometimes the data doesn't come back favorably. In fact, last week we had a report we did that it came out that this is just a bad place to go. Now, the smart thing to do for me would be to say, oh, doctor, go for it. Oh, yeah, and order another report. But I had to say to her, I'm sorry, doctor, this is a bad idea. Don't do it. I don't think they're lying to you necessarily, but I don't think you're getting a fair shake. And because you are on the hook, you have to hear the truth. And sometimes, Mike and I have discussed this, that is our job, really. It's just to tell you the truth and to put in perspective the risks you're taking. Now, let me go to the next thing. There are two countervailing factors when it comes to choosing where to practice. Should you buy a practice or not? Where should you go? How should you do things? And that is ignorance versus stupidity. Now, I can completely understand ignorance. I get ignorance. Stupidity, what stupidity really is that you haven't done your homework. You haven't done the due diligence. You haven't sat up late at night and talked to experts, and then you haven't listened to the experts who will occasionally say, bad idea, don't do it. So ignorance, I believe, is completely forgivable because you just didn't know. And some people get into practices and they didn't know that the guy selling them the practice was a drunk or a drug addict. They were dishonest. They were trying to get something for nothing. Maybe they were just not very aware. That happens. Stupidity, on the other hand, is just trusting to the fates. That's what a kid will do. You are not a kid. You're a doctor, and you're pretty smart because of that. And I may bring this up a little later. Doctors at least know that they don't know everything. In fact, I used to have this joke that what's the difference between God and an oral surgeon? It's that God knows he's not an oral surgeon. And that, at its heart, is kind of true. So if you don't know something, I hope you're the first to ask, because as a good researcher and counselor to practices, that's our job, is to help overcome the ignorance. But I can't help stupidity. That is why you're looking for experts with experience. Now, I'm going to say experts include your accountant, your attorney, it's your bank or lender. They're the people who are dealing with issues that sometimes are technical. And if you can imagine for a minute an expert telling you do not do it, you may have found an expert worth hanging on to. If you're looking at a yes person, you're in trouble. So unless your expert is willing to break your heart and explain why, keep looking. Now, real experts do not always agree. And here's something I want to kind of make a point of. Sometimes your attorney, your accountant, your lender, whatever, may think it's a good idea or a bad idea to go to this place. And if they all agree, somebody's not doing their job. You may actually want to have a little disagreement so you can judge between, well, the validity of their operationalizing an issue. You've got to know, how are you making that decision? Don't accuse your accountant, your attorney, your demographer of being dishonest, but you have to realize sometimes they can be wrong. And it's not the data that's the issue. It's what to do about the data. So let me explain this. If you have an expert, you have to ask their sources. How did you find that out? How do you know that? How did you come to that conclusion? It isn't you're calling them out. It's that you should know what their reasoning is, what their operational decisions are. So you're laying in bed 2:35 in the morning. It is great that you have experts, but sometimes you have to ask the hard questions. How did you know that? Now, I will explain this. Well, here's the thing. Let's talk about competition numbers. I do with competition all the time. Competition ratios. It isn't the issue that are there competitors or not, because every good location will have competitors. The question is, are there too many? And that's a value judgment. And it's based upon my experience dealing with hundreds of practices. Now, I can tell you there are not single variables, but multiple variables that will say whether it's okay what ratio you've got. It's knowing that you've got an area that has competition that may actually be a good thing. If there's no one competing with you, that may not be such a good indicator for the site you're in. It isn't just enough to say, oh, I know how many people there are. Now look, I'm not trying to pick on our competitors, but I've got one who does this score thing. And they'll say, oh, well, here's how many there are. And they'll assume that because they have a number, that it means something. Look, there are mitigating factors that would say if there's a lot of competition, it's great. And some that will say there's too many. And they may have exactly the same ratio. Part of that is because the amount of growth going on, or if the characteristics of the population is desirable. That may be the biggest thing that's going to help you decide. I'm merely saying knowing the factors and having an expert who can understand that and explain it is very valuable. All right, I'm going to keep moving on. I believe that avoiding risk is a risk. That may sound kind of stupid. It's not a tautology. What you are actually doing is you're making an evaluation of whether the risk is reasonable, not if there is a risk. Now, if you don't take a risk, you have to ask yourself, what am I risking? Now, there was a doctor that was trying to get a practice. It was very inexpensive. And he says, is this a good idea? And I said, we have to balance the idea of what you're going to lose if you go into this place, because the area isn't so great. But you're putting your name on this thing, and it's going to be there for a long time. You're going to lose something, however, if you don't make a decision or at least put yourself out there. That's why if you don't take a risk, you're losing something. And I want you to remember that. What all of the experts in your life, and your attorney and your accountant and the lender and all that, they're there to help you figure out what's a reasonable risk, not whether there's a risk to take or not. Now, a perspective that I want you to keep in mind, and this is fairly significant, is that you're going to gain something from your risk. You will also lose something if you don't take a risk. So what everybody does is they'll say, is it a good idea to do this decision? And really what they're asking those of us who are experts is it a good risk to take? Well, I have to ask that doctor sometimes, what are you willing to risk? And what do you gain if you take that risk? Now, a location that is just going to keep you alive and the practice will limp along for several years in the future. All right, maybe there's not much risk there, but is that why you went into practice to begin with? Are you in practice so that you can make money, or you can build something or open additional locations, or to help your dream be fulfilled? You get different things, each doctor from a different kind of risk. So I'm just telling you, you got to have a little perspective on the idea of what risks are reasonable for you. Now, these risks, I've always believed, have to be personalized. And when I say that, what I'm saying is what I want from my business is different from what you want from yours. And what that guy over there wants from his practice may be different from the guy over there. Some people are trying to build a place where they can finally have the kind of practice they've always wanted and do the kind of work they want. Others are looking for wealth. Others are looking for fame. They're looking for babes or whatever. But these risks are personalized to the doctor. And that's why I want you to think through, what am I looking for? I want you to make the risks and the rewards that you're going to receive visual. I want you to make them real. I want you to think deep, long, and hard. What am I really in this for? Make them real. Now, I have dealt with this for several very great experts in my life. I had one guy, Dave Moe. Dave was a list broker. And Dave said, sometimes the best business you ever do is the business you don't do. It's knowing when to run away. And he was very smart. He also said, if it's going to be too hard to make a buck, don't do it. He had a very firm idea of what he wanted his day to be like. He also taught me something that I have not told many doctors that I'm going to share with you. He says, you have to learn how to do the happy dance. That means if things are working out, if they do well, you got to be excited and reward yourself. Whatever that might be, how it's going to be you. Do the happy dance. Now, risks are going to keep you up at night. The benefit is not just that you're going to sleep through the night if everything works out. It's that you're going to wake up in the morning and have the benefits of what you decided. I know this may sound weird, but guys, listen. I believe that having a business for yourself is very exciting. I love it with all my heart. I love it. In fact, let me just make this point. You guys, I get to wake up every day and be Scott McDonald. One more day I get to be Scott McDonald. And I like being Scott McDonald. I love the people I talk to. I love the doctors. I love the spouses. And occasionally when I'm doing teleconferences, some little kid will kind of walk in front of the screen. And I love those little kids. I really do. It's part of the doctor's life. And knowing that is a great benefit. It's something that makes it worth doing what I'm doing. I know that your spouse, your significant other, is kind of scared about all the decisions you're making. I get that because they're sharing risks and sometimes they don't have the ability to change those risks. Knowing that is the case, it's just one of those things that it makes me happy when they're involved in the decision making and I can explain things. Sometimes the areas that people are considering, for example, are not good. And I'll tell them, I'll say, this isn't so good. You may want to try over there because this one isn't going to work. And most people are pretty grateful when they hear that. It isn't that I'm trying to kill their dream. It's that I'm trying to help them be realistic. That's what my job is. Now, I bring this up about the telephone consultation because it's very, very personalized. It isn't done by formula. There isn't some algorithm that I bring up after I put all the data in, say it's a good idea or not. I talk to you about what's important to you. And that's why I want you to tell me why you're doing what you're doing. Now, Mike's Marketing Mastery course it kind of does that too. It takes very personally into account what it is you're trying to do and the promotion of your image and your practice. That's what this is about. So we try to make this as personal as we can. I have actively avoided relying too heavily upon algorithms that are simply a calculation based upon someone else's assumptions of what's going on. I don't think that's a very smart way to go. Now, it does do one thing that I want to tell you if you're listening to this matters, and that is sometimes it takes a little longer to get our work done. I can't just say, oh, bingo, bink, it's there. I have to kind of say, is that what this guy wants to do? Is that what he's really after? Is that the kind of risk that he wants to take? And really good experts, not just me, but all of us who are in this business of helping doctors have that kind of investment. So, is this worth it to you? What are you going to get? That's what we're in the business of doing. Mike, is there anything you would like to add to this?
Well, it's really important that everybody understands that the analysis that we get after the numbers is really where the value comes. And at one point, it's really exciting. I think that we live in a time where we can do a gut check on any address in the country. Doesn't matter where you are. We can tell you exactly what things were like 10 years ago, what things are like right now, and what we think things are going to be like in the future. And that's an exciting time. And I think it's an exciting opportunity for doctors to be able to have that much analytics on what's happening and the trends that are happening in their community. Because the key here is that if you know the numbers and apply this to any other business principle, if you are not doing very well with closing cases in your practice, what do? You track it. How many opportunities did you have? How many closing opportunities did you have? How many people did you have walk through the door? If you're not doing well with your phone follow-ups, you track it. You track those numbers. It's no different than what you would apply as a business owner in your practice. You want to know a better way to present your practice, your marketing, your bedside manner to your patients, to your community, then you need to know the numbers and you need to track the numbers, because the better that you know them, the better you're going to be able to draw those conclusions of how to train your staff. And that is exactly what we attempt to do and try to help you do by providing these reports. And whether it's the practice viability report, which we get super deep on, or it's an on-site marketing evaluation where I fly out and I spend time with you and your staff. I mean, we can get really, really deep. And that's the exciting part, is we don't just shove a PDF in your face and say, here is pages and pages of numbers that most of which are completely insignificant. We say, these are the key points. These are the things that you need to know for your practice. And these are what those numbers are going to mean for your bottom line. That's the key. And that's the part that we try to in a nice way say, hey guys, we're the only company that provides that can provide both the demographic knowledge of at least 30 years that Scott's been in the business, and over 20 years that I've been in the marketing side of deploying those numbers into actionable items. And so if you're hearing my voice here, and if you're picking up what I'm laying down, let me call to action on a couple of things. Number one, if you have not ordered a report for your practice within the last year or 18 months, let me invite you to make that, to take that opportunity. Right now, as Scott said, we have the rush report that we're going to pull here in a couple of days. That's essentially half price of what a typical demographic report is. So take advantage of first getting that. But for those of you that are in the top 10%, let me make an invitation and let me invite you, or have you consider that there is something greater that you can be doing with your practice. There is a greater amount of action that you can take and that you can deploy, and you can take control of your outcomes and control of your marketing. And that's what our numbers and our analysis can help you do. We can help train your staff, we can help train you, and we can help you deploy those patient attracting methods into your practice. It's going to be specific to the demographics and the psychographics of your neighborhood where you're currently practicing. There just is not another company that provides that level of detail and that level of depth available, at least that I know of, Scott. Maybe you know somebody else that does.
No, I think that's true. Now, I just want to say one thing in my own little conclusion here. I want everybody to remember that what we're doing is a people business. It's not a process business. It matters what's on your mind and what's important to you. If it's not important to you, it's not really worth doing. So please take a look at what we've got. I am heading out to Florida soon, northern Florida, to be meeting with some folks. And I know this is going to be a rough visit, but it's going to be an important visit because we got some really important things on the doctor's agenda. What's important to you is kind of important to us. So just kind of keep that in mind. And if you're wondering, can they help me? Better for you to give us a call and talk, and we'll do what we can. Everybody, we're running out of time, so I want to thank Mike for being here, and thank all of you for watching. If we can help you out, please visit us at drdemographics.com and take a look at our products and services. Take care.